This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Let me first say, I might not be as energetic this episode. We'll talk about why. I sat on Monday, watched a college basketball game, and I was, for the most part, happy for the students that were there celebrating, harking back to 2000 when it happened, but man, Michigan winning the NCAA Tournament was like a nice, swift kick in the nuts, and that's just the way it is. Michigan has understood the mission with NIL, and now we'll talk about why the Doc is so sad about this particular topic. And as well, the Red Wings can't hold the lead, still can't hold the lead, 10 seconds left, 5 seconds left, 20 seconds left. Red Wings have no way to stop opponents from scoring in the third period. It's crazy. The Columbus game was another swift kick in the nuts. Maybe still alive, but we'll talk about the rest of their schedule. Can they win against some cupcakes the rest of the way? We'll talk about it. Cade Cunningham back now, potentially. We see videos of him practicing. Hopefully, maybe an opportunity for him to get back into the playoffs. It feels like the Pistons are playing out the string, but was his injury a blessing in disguise? And we'll review the first week of the Tigers. A little bit of a power outage. What's going on? Scuba Day, not as fun. Because, let me say this, watching the tournament, I was like, okay, this is, obviously it's a situation in which you got the new era of college basketball. It's a situation where athletes, like right now, as we're talking, there's like 3,500 kids in the portal. It's more pro than ever. Can't say that, I'm terribly surprised whenever big dollars are involved, but it just makes it a little tougher to connect, even with me and the Spartans. It's like, okay, who's going to stay, who's going to go, and that's the way it is. It's a pro nature now. You can barely get to know these guys before they go off to take the next best offer, as they should. But Michigan did it best. They brought together 5 dudes, couple NBA ballers, big men. They handled it. But what hurts me the most, okay, is I feel like I was right and the DSP curse hit. I predicted in a couple brackets that I entered. I entered one. I tried to use AI maybe to fill it out, but I didn't like the way it was going. It had Illinois going far, but not far enough. So I picked Duke to win it all. And I really felt Duke was the best team in this tournament. And had they just been able to close it out, knowing now, healthy versus healthy, it would have been a classic game. But you know that Michigan's best player was hurt. He obviously struggled. They had a bad game. I feel like if outside of divine intervention, Duke was the best team in this tournament. Now, Michigan, you got to give them credit. They played who was in front of them. They were able to beat people, even with Lindeborg hurt against Arizona. That was crazy. But I just sit here and go, man, Michigan was a national brand. Now that they're flush with cash, they have, the network of Michigan just extends worldwide. Even if Michigan State has billionaire donors, you can't compete with Michigan. They now have the resources. They have the young, smart coach. It just reminds me of 20 years ago when Michigan State was also in Indy. It's just tough for me because Michigan has lapped Michigan State in football, basketball, and now pretty much hockey, where they're probably going to win the tournament there as well, whereas Michigan State gets upset every year. What's your reaction to Michigan winning? I obviously am bummed out. The game sucked to me. It was Brickfest, and the officials made it a story. I was just sitting there watching, and the other thing too was, and I'll admit this, I don't gamble a lot on sports. I'm a poker guy, but my brain told me, all right, John, everyone tells you that Michigan's going to win. You know Michigan's going to win. And I said, okay, if you're going to drop a big bet, you should do it. Just do it. But then I said, you know what? The universe, maybe you don't want them to win. Don't do it. I also feel like a bitch because I didn't pull the trigger. It was the most easy, no-brainer bet. You could have dropped $1,000, made like $600 easy, and you just feel like, man, what a bitch. In this era where and of course, at the end of the game where, UConn kept it a little close, felt like a bitch. I didn't bet. I should have just bet big. Just take a swing. I told the wife, I said, I should have just bet big on this one. Could have paid my taxes on it. But I said, no, it wouldn't have happened. So Michigan Nation, thank the doc. Because I know if I would have put some money down on Michigan would have lost. So thank the doc. Thank the doc for picking Duke because UConn was able to come back and you didn't have to face the best team in the tournament. So that's how it goes. How do you react to Michigan? I don't do the whole NIL, best paid team. Yeah, it's fun to talk about, but I'm just mad because they did it best. Michigan State could have did it. Any other team could have did it. Michigan did it best.
Jesus Christ, dude. Are you okay?
No, I'm sad.
You have to have suicide watch. You sound so depressed. This is supposed to be a happy time. I get it. You're a Spartan fan, but good God, man, you are a rainy freaking cloud. You just gave me so much to address that wasn't even on the rundown. So let's start here, okay? I'm going to start with your Duke thing, okay? Obviously, Duke was not the best team. Duke got beat by UConn. Duke couldn't get there. Duke didn't get there. Now, was it kind of crazy how it happened with Duke? Yes, it was. If you go back to that Michigan-Duke game, really and truly, the Achilles heel for Michigan was three-point shooting in that game. The one thing going into this tournament that we talked about was, can Michigan shoot the three? Michigan figured out how to shoot the three. The three is how they rode, essentially hanging 94-plus points on everybody they played in this tournament up until the final game. This was a team that steamrolled everybody they faced up until UConn. UConn was the one team that I did not want to see in this tournament at all. And there was a reason for it. The way UConn plays makes things very, very messy. UConn likes to muddy the water. They like to bloody it up a little bit. They'll drag you into the deep end of the pool. They like to run these moving screens all the time. So there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of bumping. There's a lot of getting guys off track and off base. And what that does is just opens up shots for them. On top of that, defensively, they lean on you. They like to play rough. They like to elbow you. They make you fight for everything inside. You go to that game, Michigan lived inside. Michigan dwelled inside. This was not the game Michigan wanted to play. This was the game Michigan had to play to beat UConn. UConn said, if you're going to win this championship and you're going to stop what looks to be a dynasty forming in college basketball, because realize UConn, if they would have won this, there'd be 3 national championships in 4 years. That's dynasty level right there. That is something that we haven't seen since, what was it? UNC back in the day, something not since like UCLA with John Wooden. That is dynasty stuff right there. And they said, if you want to win this, you've got to come play our game. Michigan said, all right, fine. We will play your game. And they played their game better. Michigan is the best team in this tournament. Michigan has been the best team all year. Yes, they lost to Duke. Duke rightfully got that number 1 overall 1 seed. Okay. But Duke couldn't go and face UConn and do those things to UConn like Michigan did. They had a 19-point lead that they let evaporate. So you can't say that Duke was the best team in this tournament because statistically, and just looking at how the games played out, they weren't. Michigan was. Michigan, incredibly dominant. On top of that, you look at the championship game. You look at the last 2 games in this tournament. Michigan playing those games without their best player, with their best player being hampered and essentially looking like a shell of himself because his ankle was dead. Michigan, when you put it all together, you look at their dominance that they had in the regular season. You look at their dominance in the Big Ten. You look at their dominance in this tournament, and you look at how they had to play against UConn. You can't say anything other than this is arguably one of the top 3 all-time college basketball teams ever. The way Michigan played was absolutely incredible throughout this tournament. Like I said, going into it, I had concerns about their three-point shooting. You go back to that Duke game that they lost, their three-point shooting was non-existent. For most of the season, their three-point shooting was non-existent. At some point, they got into the Big Ten tournament and they figured some stuff out. They lost to Purdue in the championship game in the Big Ten tournament. I think they had their eyes set on the actual tournament and they let that one get away. But after that, they were laser focused, and they got compliments off the bench. They got dudes hitting big threes coming off the bench. They had dudes who struggled beyond the arc all season, lighting it up from beyond the arc. And then when UConn took that away from them, what'd they do? They went inside, and they played masterfully down low. I think all but 5 points and whatever was scored from the charity stripe all came inside. You look at what Mara did. He was a defensive juggernaut. These guys would come down and he would swat balls away. They played defensive basketball, which is something you do like. They played offensively immaculately, right? Maybe not so much against UConn because, it was a defensive slugfest, but they were able to adapt. This was a team that can score from beyond the arc. This was a team that could dribble, drive, penetrate, kick it out. This was a team that could dribble, drive, and lay it up. This was a team that, when they needed to, they could go inside, feed the big men, and they could even get some of the littler guys involved, and they cleaned up the glass. Rebounding was incredibly important in this game. And I think Michigan got into Danny Hurley's head. I think Michigan got into UConn's head, and I think Michigan played a wonderful game, and I think it shows you the genius of Dusty May. I don't know if you realize this. Generally, you go into these into the tournament, and you're playing inside football stadiums. Sight lines are weird. Things are just off. Everything's just a little bit different because they're trying to pack these stadiums with so many people. And generally, when you go to a college and you play college basketball, you're usually playing in an arena that can hold anywhere from smaller schools. It's usually about 3,000 people all the way up to maybe 12, maybe 15. Usually not too much bigger than that. When you're playing in the tournament, you're inside a 80,000 seat arena. Everything just looks different. And sometimes they have elevated floors, which really throws everything off. What Dusty May do? He forced them to practice inside the big house. Absolutely ingenious. This guy is out here actually playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers and trying to keep up. Dusty May, best coach of the year. The University of Michigan basketball team, best basketball team of the year. In this arguably one of the best NCAA runs of the decade, arguably one of the best championship teams of this decade, and one of the top 3 championship teams of all time. The way that they won this was bonkers. I absolutely loved it. And I look, I get you're a Spartan fan. I get why it'd be sour grapes for you, because there is no more closing the gap. Michigan has closed the gap, and now Michigan State has to catch up. Michigan State has to catch up in football. Michigan State has to catch up in hockey. Michigan State has to now catch up in the one thing that you held dear to your heart, basketball. How crazy is it that Michigan has played for a championship 3 times? 3 times. They've won one since then, or in those 3 times that they played, while Michigan State won their last one. That, to me, tells you where the programs are at right now. Michigan State still trying to figure it out with Tom Izzo, and maybe he's the problem. Maybe he's just too stuck in his old ways to evolve with where college is now. But Michigan has eclipsed Michigan State in basketball, and I think that's the big thing coming out of this, besides them being one of the greatest national champions of all time.
Yeah, no, look, it would be interesting to compare eras, the Duke teams. It would be interesting, Obviously, like I said, I feel like if Duke was able to close it out. Now, given the fact, I would have loved to have seen a healthy Michigan team.
That was the game I wanted to see. I wanted to see Michigan
it.
Duke.
This game sucked.
I wanted to see it.
It was defensive. It was cool, but the refs made it an issue. It was Brick City, and every time UConn tried to, they took 33 shots and made 9 threes. It was horrible. They kept doing it, and it was just a tough watch. And the officials and all the calls. Michigan was shooting free throws with 7 minutes left in the first half. So listen, not the reason why. Michigan, I think, was clearly better than UConn all the way. So I just wanted to see Michigan versus Duke. That was 1 versus 2, in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen it, and obviously I would have liked to have seen it with a hurt Lindeborg, obviously, and that would have maybe changed the trajectory of things. But look, give credit to UConn. They fought against Duke. Duke didn't know how to close, and you have to finish. You're right. They weren't there. The universe conspired, and it was meant to be that Michigan won it. I give them credit. I do think that they're in the conversation to be one of the best teams ever, but I do think that some of the better shooting teams in the past might have had a little bit more of their way with it, with Michigan in certain spots. But listen, a healthy Michigan team speaks. They're obviously better than the Fab 5 era team. I think that clearly you can state right now that's one of the best Michigan teams that has been out there, probably arguably the best. basketball team fielded by Michigan out there. But it speaks to what you got to do. You got to pony up. And also, too, Michigan didn't spend the most. That's the one thing you guys got to remember. That's what hurts more. It's not that they spent the most, okay? It's they spent the best. They found the 5 best players together to come in and win. That's what hurts. Because, look, Michigan State has money. They have billionaires. They have it. The problem, what makes it sucks is that you look at Tom Izzo and you go, what are you waiting for, dude? You're in your 70s. But I will say this. This will be the only gloom and doom I talk about in regards to this, because now you have 365 days. There's one big dangling carrot that both Michigan and Michigan State hopefully have the opportunity, because maybe we'll manifest it starting now, April 9th. Michigan, Michigan State, maybe a Final Four game, maybe a championship game in Detroit. LCA, let's go. Let's see how it happens, or wherever it takes place in Detroit. I'm excited for the opportunity that both will have, because money's out, creativity's out, figuring out who you need to get. Let's go. Both teams have to be in the Final Four next year. Let's battle it out on the biggest stage. But kudos to Michigan. Congrats. It is what it is. They are the tournament winners. Now, on the other side of things, we're going to talk about a couple teams here that are going to be hopefully battling for the playoffs, but I think most people have jumped off the Red Wings bandwagon because I think the Columbus game was terrible. You had a terrible weekend against 2 bad teams. I mean, look, Minnesota, give them credit, but, it's back-to-back. I get it. But my goodness, national stage, you're playing the Rangers, who are, have a goalie that's our age playing out there. And I messaged you, I'm like, dude, Quick is still in the league? You're like, yeah, the dude's 50. He's still kicking around. He was like 2-15, comes in against the Red Wings, looks like Patrick Waugh. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? And then they lost to the Wild, and it's just, look, in the end, I do think that you're at the point now where most people are like, you know what? Trade Larkin, trade Raymond, trade anybody, just make this thing look different. Nobody's happy with the Red Wings. They're getting booed off the ice consistently. It's one of those deals where, whatever, you make the postseason, you're going to get your ass stomped. There's going to be no light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. It's not a good look because the momentum has been faded away again. That's the scary part, is that's the one thing everybody knows, is that you got to step it up. Patrick Kane, you tie the game late and you take one of the dumbest penalties, I think, against the Wild that you could take, and you lose the game. So embarrassing. It's tough, but I think, I'll let you take the floor. But Red Wings, cuz it's one of those teams, it's one of those clubs that you can't get behind because they don't have grit. They're not playing well, and they're doing the things that many of us believe are antithetical or against what winning represents, which is they're not working hard, they don't shoot the puck enough, they don't play great defense, a lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes. And when your coach has to call you out in March, April to try, that just turns off the average fan, podcaster, media. You're like, dude, your coach has to tell you to try hard in practice? What are you doing this for? It's embarrassing at the highest level. And I just kind of, at this point, I'm like, if they make it, fine. If they don't, that's fine. I'm turning the page and getting excited to look at Cade Cunningham and the Pistons.
Yeah, I'm like, I've been done with this team for a while, but yeah. I think what you've seen down the stretch here is that this team is soft. They're soft mentally. They're soft physically. Their style of play is soft. They don't have it. Whatever it is, they don't have it. There's no will to win. It almost feels like there's no want to. And I think that is probably the most frustrating part watching these guys play. Now, something has to be done, right? And this is now the 4th season where they've had this epic collapse in March. And it's just kind of starting to feel like it's Control C, Control V, just copy and paste season to season. Larkin doesn't look like he's gotten any better. Lucas Raymond doesn't look like he's gotten any better. DeBrincat doesn't look like he's gotten any better. Patrick Kane, in the game that you were highlighting, looked like he was checked out, and his penalty cost this team a chance to win a game, and he seemed to not care. So there's something wrong with the mix. There's something wrong in that locker room. Something is not right. And when that happens, this is going to suck because it's been 7 years of trying to build to get into the playoffs to make some noise. And like you said, if they did get to the playoffs, they're just going to get jail sexed. It doesn't matter. They're just going to get beat up and tossed out. You have to blow this up. This has to be torn down to the studs and has to be blown up. You've got to move guys out of here. And I think the hardest thing is you're going to end up being a lotto team when the draft rolls around. This will be the one year where you win when you win the lotto, and Detroit gave up their first round pick.
Right?
So they don't even have their pick, and they're going to end up winning the lotto. Watch what happens.
Oh my God.
So,
oh my God.
Like you didn't even think about that, right? But that's what's going to happen. That's the fate of this team. You have to blow this up. Like you can't keep doing this. Like you keep trying to roll the same guys out there, and the same thing keeps happening. You've got to look at possibly trading a guy like a Larkin. You got to possibly look at trading a guy like maybe a Lucas Raymond, maybe a DeBrincat. That was a guy you traded for. You've got to break this up somehow, some way, and you essentially have to start over. And look, I know that when you go to the different hockey sites, they rave about their minor league teams. They rave about the guys in Grand Rapids. It's one of those things where I don't know if you call those guys up and they learn the hard way. I don't really like that. I feel like that was part of the problem with this team. You had zero veteran leadership. If I'm calling guys up from Grand Rapids and they're sitting in that room with these guys, I feel like there's still no veteran leadership. Like you have to bring somebody in who is going to command the attention of that room. And it has a player, like not a coach. It has to be a player. Dylan Larkin is your captain. I don't think he commands the respect of this team. I feel like this is a guy who came to this team very young. I feel like this was a team that had set losing trends, and by default they gave him the captaincy, and they're like, here you go, you're the guy. And I don't feel like there's been any accountability that he holds anybody to, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's him. Maybe he's the guy who has to go, or maybe he has to come up with a different approach, because what we've seen on the ice the last couple of years is, one, frustrating, but two, it's damning. It's damning to Steve Yzerman. It's damning to those players in the room. It's damning to these coaches. And look, I'm not letting Steve Yzerman get out of the scot-free. I feel like he needs to go. He needs to be fired. He is part of the problem with all of this. I feel like his pro player personnel evaluations are awful. Comfort, these are guys that you paid a good chunk of money to, and these guys suck. Like, these guys aren't any good. There's no reason they should be playing as high as they play. These are fourth line guys, and that's what they should be doing. Instead, you've got these guys commanding your second and your third lines, and that's an issue right there. So Yzerman's got to go. The room has to be torn down, and you've got to move pieces and get other guys in here. There has to be somebody who can look across the stall to the guy next to him and say, hey, you're not doing your job. You got to pick it up. Let's go win this game, and get that guy motivated enough to where he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm not doing my job. I'm not battling for those 50-50 pucks. I'm not working as hard as I can work. I've got more in the tank that I can give this team. Let's go get this. I don't feel like that's in that room. You know, we thought maybe bringing Patrick Kane in, a guy who's won, could kind of help stir something and help establish something. It hasn't. And like we said, in the game that you highlighted, he looked like he didn't even care. They was sitting in the box and he cost his team some points. Now, like, I know he cares, but like, he just looked like, all right, whatever. To me, it feels like it's a team that does not hold each other accountable. It feels like a coaching staff that has lost the room again. I don't know how Steve Yzerman has the ability to go out and hire a new coach. I don't know who gets that leeway. And at some point, you've just got to detonate all of this, and we just have to start over. And if that means it's going to take another 7 years for us to get to a point where we can possibly win a playoff game, then that's going to be what it's going to be. I feel like you can fast track this and you can do this a little bit different and get there quicker, but they've got to do something, because the Yzer plan is absolutely awful, and it is not working, and it is so obvious that it's not working. And Steve Yzerman is so defiant, and sometimes he just checks out in the middle of these pressers with the media because he just doesn't care. And like, to me, that is frustrating. He needs to be held accountable. The players in that room need to be held accountable. The coaching staff needs to be held accountable. The people who Steve Yzerman surrounds himself with need to be held accountable. People need to be fired, because this is just unacceptable.
Best way to put it, unacceptable. Detroit deserves a lot better, and for this to go down like this is embarrassing at the highest level. It's just not Red Wings hockey. It's not gritty. It's just the antithesis of what the Pistons have been. And just as we were talking about the Wings, it's been reported Cade Cunningham is back tonight. So it's cool. What are you looking forward to seeing from Cade Cunningham? Are you a little bit nervous when you look at his return? Because this, a lung situation can return, but I hope that, the time away will do him right.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that when you look at it, my goodness, Jalen Duren took the bull by the horns, the proverbial bull by the horns, and made this maybe basketball team force themselves to really, lock in. And I kind of think that, similar to you, that maybe Cade Cunningham's injury might have actually helped this basketball team to say, hey, we just can't count on our superstar player. We got to actually go out there and compete. And Jalen Duren made himself cause maybe even north of $200 million this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a guy who early this year they were like, yeah, we're not going to extend you. You're going to have to prove it out there. And I think he's proved it. I think the Cade Cunningham injury was a huge blessing in disguise. Coming out of the trade deadline, we were a little bit frustrated. We were a little bit upset because they didn't really do anything. They didn't really add any pieces. And we're like, Cade needs a number 2. I think this forced these guys to grow up real fast. And I think it forced these guys to say, hey, no, we can do these things too. We can help this team win. And Duren himself has just made himself a fortune of money. And he is obviously the number 2 on this team. I think Cade getting hurt, as much as it sucks and as much as something that we're going to have to watch going forward, I think it was huge for that locker room. And I think it was monumental for the growth of a lot of these guys, specifically Jalen Duren. Look, Cade coming back, I think is fantastic. The fact that they've already locked up the number 1 seed, I think allows you to handle him with kid gloves, right? You don't have to go out there. You don't have to roll him out there and say, hey, you're going to go play 30 minutes tonight. Like, that's not going to happen. I think you roll him out there. I think he gets 15 minutes. If he looks good after 15, maybe you give him another 5. But I feel like you ease him back so when the playoffs roll around, he's good to go. I don't, and look, playoffs are coming up very, very quickly. I don't think you immediately dump a lot on him. And especially since he's got to kind of reacclimate a little bit. You got to make sure he's got his legs underneath him. And I don't think that you necessarily want to have him come back and be like, hey, Jalen, okay, cool. You're going to take the back seat again. No, I think now you've got to kind of, this could be the one problem with this, right? These two guys now have to figure out how to coexist because Jalen Duren has taken monumental steps forward while Cade was out. Now, Cade's got to reintegrate himself back in, and you still need Duren to play at such a high level. I think if they can figure out how to make that work, this team is that much more dangerous when the playoffs roll around, and I think it's a fantastic thing. Like we said, Duren said, F you, pay me, and that's kind of where we're at now because they were like, hey, man, we're not really sure if you're going to be the piece that we need to keep. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm that guy. Like, I'm that man. So Duren is him. And Cade obviously is him. I think the fact that they've locked up the number 1 seed is spectacular because I think it allows you to do things with Cade that you don't need to just force him in there because you don't have to go out there to win games. You don't have to go out there and try to stave off other teams from getting that number 1 seed. You've already got it. So just go get your legs right and let's work on a couple of things and let's get things squared up so when we get into the playoffs, we can show that we are a powerhouse. And I think that's the thinking with the Pistons right now. And I love the fact that him getting hurt, I don't love the fact that he got hurt, but I love the fact that you were able to see the maturity and you were able to see the development of other guys when he did go down. And to me, that screams and speaks to a locker room that has a good culture, that screams and speaks to a locker room that has it figured out, and a coaching staff that has the attention of the players. You compare that to the Red Wings, those things don't happen. The Red Wings, Dylan Larkin goes down. Next thing you know, they're on a 5-game losing streak. The culture of these locker rooms is vastly different, and you've seen it when Cade Cunningham, your all-star, got hurt. So excited for him to come back. More excited that Duren has taken monumental steps forward, and I'm excited to see how these two guys integrate with each other and play.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun playoff run. Eastern Conference or bust. Hopefully maybe have a chance to compete against OKC. Maybe get all the way to the finals. We shall see. But it's been a fun
Does
year.
Boston scare you right now? Like they've got Tatum back, and he's worked his way back into a really good shape. And if we were early in the season, we're like, yeah, no problems there, right? We didn't expect him to be back. He came back a little bit sooner than I think we both thought. He looks really, really good. And I think if there was a team that could be the speed bump in the road, it is Boston. But I think with Duren taking these steps forward, I think it makes the Detroit Pistons that much more lethal. I think if you lock down Cade, you can find ways to get Duren the ball. I think the big issue with Duren is he basically works in close proximity to the basket. Like, you still need a shooter. Like, you still need a guy to be able to hit a big three. And I don't know if anybody has really taken that big of a step forward where you're like, that's the guy. It's crunch time. We need a big three. Cade's going to bring it up. He's going to get doubled. You can kick the ball down into Duren. Duren can then kick it back out, and he can knock down the three. I don't know if they have that guy yet, and I feel like Boston would be the stumbling block because Tatum has come back, and he's looked so good. Does Boston scare you in just the overall playoff picture and essentially the Pistons' destiny to get to an NBA Finals?
What scares me a little bit is their offense at times, making sure that they do have enough shooting. But I think defense travels. I think that you play with that tenacity, and I think that, you know what, we found Robin. It's Jalen Duren. If he can get after it, and then you get the complementary pieces with, Tobias Harris and, the opportunities that they have there to put it over the top, I'm kind of excited to see it. Yeah, who's going to be the complement? I think that's a nice combo. Duren and Cunningham, my goodness, might be an unstoppable force. I think that I am a little concerned, but I don't think you get the full force of Tatum's return until next year. So I think it'll be fun, a fun series if they get to that point. Cleveland has obviously some talent, and I want to see that series, but the series that has emotion behind it is the Knicks. So if you face the Knicks, that one could get wild because that one might be a home and home series, and you might have to go 7 games to get past them because for some reason, the Pistons this year, they just had their way with the Knicks all year. So when that happens, that there's a revenge factor. So I think that there's some emotionality, a budding rivalry with that team. So I think I would rank it the Cleveland 1, Boston 2, and the Knicks. And we'll see how it shakes out moving forward with Cade Cunningham. It's going to be key. I think you need a healthy Cade Cunningham. You need him to stay out there on the floor. But let's see if now Duren takes his game to the next level in the postseason. Because, yeah, you can make your money in the regular season, but you get your NBA respect in the playoffs. And I think this Pistons team might have it because I know I was down in the early segment, but guess what? You remember what happened in 1989 when Michigan won the NCAA Tournament? The Detroit Pistons were able to secure the NBA title. So maybe, a team of destiny this year with the Pistons, and it'll be a fun ride. Last segment here, talking about the Detroit Tigers, and it was a good start to the week until it wasn't. And you're like, the end of the series against St. Louis, obviously it's tough to always sweep a team. Fine. It sucked because, everyone was pumped up about JV, and it didn't happen because he hurt his hip. And you're like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you're 40. Sometimes you just wake up and you're sore. So you're like, oh, man, what a bummer. And then you start this twin series with 2 losses, and you're like, ooh, power outage. And there is something now to talk about with this Detroit Tigers team after 1 week. They can score, but not consistently. And there is something that is concerning with the bats not being able to consistently get open. I think that obviously the JV injury was significant, and the bullpen is maybe not as good as we thought early on. But it's early, but a couple games under 500, Skubal Day, and then you get the talk of the manager going, we might need to split up the combination of Skubal and Valder. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Framber Valdez doesn't get a chance to follow Skubal. I kind of like that, but I can see why. But Skubal, the slump stopper, didn't do the job, and he had a rough inning. I was like, oh, man, that sucks. And I was like, But the bright spot has been Kevin McGonigal. Kerry Carpenter, they had the breakout game at home, with the weird weather. But outside of that, outside of a little bit of an offensive explosion, the bats have been a little bit concerning. Where are you at with this baseball club? I'm a little bit concerned in the start because I kind of thought they would have a hot start, and that's not the case. You got to win the next couple games just to salvage a split against the Twins. I was like, I was hoping you'd make the, well, the one thing is, though, there's no fans in Minnesota watching it because of the cold weather. But as of this recording, they're 4-7. They, are 2-1 at home, but 2-6 away to start the year. Your thoughts through the first week of the season with the Detroit Tigers?
So I think there are a few things to be concerned about here, right? And you kind of laid them all out, highlighted them. I think JV, he's supposed to be your fifth pitcher, right? But essentially getting hurt before you throw your first game, I think that is, or getting hurt before you throw your second game, I think that's a concern. Does this linger? Does this become something that really trips you up? Because when I look at that pitching rotation, it is really held down by two guys, and then it feels like you're trying to piecemeal it together for another win with three guys on the back end, right? Like Jack Flaherty, I don't know where you stand, but I'm not confident in him. He, to me, feels like he's 50-50. It's either going to be good or it's going to be really, really bad. Casey Mize, I like seeing what I see with Casey Mize, but I still don't have the confidence in him that when he takes the mound, it's a W. I feel like it could be a win, but I'm usually expecting a loss. And then you were hoping JV would kind of come in, some veteran leadership. He would be the guy who kind of steadied the back end of that rotation. And it was going to be a coin flip. If you got good JV, it was going to be a win. If you got bad JV, it was probably going to be a loss. You were just hoping that he could go and give you 6 innings to help preserve some of your bullpen, which is its own problems right now. And now with him getting hurt, again, you look at a 50-50 guy in Jack Flaherty. You look at a 50-50 guy in Casey Mize, and then you've got a 50-50 guy in Justin Verlander who's on the shelf. So now you're getting Tater Monteo, Cater Montero, who is what he is, man. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he's a guy that when things go wrong, you see him, and you don't want to see the Tater. So it's one of those things where I have concerns about this rotation, and maybe breaking up Valdez and Skubal is the right thing to do. Again, they're both lefties, so maybe you move Flaherty up, or maybe you move Mize up, and you kind of separate those two guys out. It'll help you win a few more series when they come around and they get to see each other in the rotation. So I don't know, but that then leads into, like I said, the bullpen, which you were really hoping that there was some stability there. And you were really hoping that things were going to even out a little bit and level out. And you were going to have guys that you could just roll in on the 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning, and they were just going to punch button, do their jobs, close out innings. That really hasn't happened either. That's been an issue. And it doesn't help that the bats go completely cold for large stretches of multiple games. It's not like they go cold for innings. They go cold for games. You'll have 2-3 games where the bats aren't able to drive any runs in. And yes, it is early. And yes, water does find its level. But it puts your bullpen in a bad spot where you're like, you guys don't have any wiggle room. Go out there and figure it out. So all these things working together kind of have us where we're at. Now, again, it's early. I'm not willing to run down Woodward screaming that the sky is falling, but I am getting concerned. All of these things are very concerning to me. I think the bats, when the weather warms up a little bit and the longer that things progress, I think the bats will figure out where the bats need to be. I don't think this is a true assessment of what the bats are right now. As far as the starting rotation goes and the injuries are going to happen, especially when you got a dude who's 40. You know the deal. You roll out of bed some mornings and you go to put your feet on the ground and you're like, oh my God, my back hurts. What the hell happened? I didn't do anything today. I just took a breath. So he's an older pitcher. These things are going to happen. I think that rotation will figure itself out. I think Casey Mize is kind of the key, though. I think he's the guy. If he can take a step forward, I think all of a sudden that starting rotation looks that much better. Skubal, obviously a stud. Valdez, there's a reason why you paid him as much as you paid him. And I think if you can insert Casey Mize kind of in that Reese Olson role, I think you feel much better when you see these guys on paper and when you see these guys take the mound, which then leads to the bullpen. The bullpen's probably my biggest concern because going into the season, I thought this was going to be much better, and it's obviously not. I don't know how they fix it right now. I don't know what they necessarily do. And that is kind of why I have concerns. When I checked on the list for things that we might need at the trade deadline, bullpen arm was not on that list. It wasn't something that I had highlighted. It was something that I had high on that list. And right now it's moving very, very close to extra bat, which is what I still feel like they need the most. So I'm going to continue to watch the bullpen. I'm going to continue to monitor the bullpen. And I hope that as the season progresses, much like the bats, they get hot and everything kind of levels out. But lots to be concerned about with the Tigers. I don't think the sky is falling, but these are things that we have to watch. And I don't think going into the season, if I told you they were going to be in this spot, I don't think you would have said, yeah, that's right. I feel like you'd have said, no. What went wrong? How did Skubal get hurt? What McGonigal's not the guy that we thought he was? Who's injured? What took place? You would have had 9,000 questions on what could have went wrong. And if I would have told you, yeah, Justin Verlander woke up one morning and he had a tight hip, you would be like, that's it? And I'd be like, yep, that's it. You'd be like, okay, that's not good. Season's looking sketch already. So things to monitor. We're not in a good spot. Things can get shifted around here. And hopefully as the weather warms up, everybody gets hot and everything finds its level.
Exactly. And you got to make sure that when you look at it, it starts with pitching. If you got Skubal, going a little bit longer, 95 pitches. You hope that he's able to rebound couple starts where he didn't get the win. So I'm like, ooh, that's not what we're looking for here. I didn't think they start 4-7. The Guardians start 7-5, so they're going to be pesky as always. It's just one of those deals where you go, man. And then you start. But I do think that returning home against the Marlins will provide you a little bit of some relief, and I think that the next series you have
a get right series, right? A get right. You get a little live action bullpen sessions up there for the bats, and the pitchers get to work through a couple of things, and in the bullpen, not as taxed, hopefully.
And then you get the Royals at home for 1, 2, 3 games, then you head on the road to the Red Sox. So it's serious. 1, 2, 3, 4 games against the Red Sox next week before coming back.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Red Sox look like absolute dog shit right now.
Yes.
So again, that could be another get right series, which by the time next week when everything rolls around, and that's how we have to take this, right? We look at this week to week. Next week, things roll around. The Detroit Tigers could be in first place in the Central. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I believe they're looking up at everybody. So you get 4 games against Boston, who's not been good, and all of a sudden stats and their rankings in the Central all of a sudden look much, much better. So hopefully that's the case.
4-7 start. Ugh. Interesting time in Detroit sports, but always fun to peek into what's going on. And it's that fun time now with the transfer portal in college basketball. Lots of interesting names to pay attention to. Hopefully Michigan State targets some guys, and interesting to see who stays and who goes with the Michigan Wolverines. So it's a fun time. And now you get spring football. So you're going to start to hear some of the reports coming out about what's been happening in spring ball with the new coach at Michigan, and we'll see what happens. And this weekend is the Frozen Four in Vegas. So we shall see how it all shakes out next week, and we will report back. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Now we turn our attention to baseball and basketball, the 2Bs. And then if the Red Wings figure out anything, we'll see maybe the last stretch will give them one glimmer of hope. But I'll ask you this real fast as a quick aside. If you're probably not going to trade Larkin Cuz, but do you think that they should strip his captaincy? Should they take it away and just say, you know what? If this is what it looks like with you as a captain, give it to somebody else. Give it to Sider. He at least is there and is somewhat consistent. Is he your captain next year?
I would strip it from him.
Strip it.
I haven't seen enough, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, it doesn't feel like there's any accountability in that locker room.
Right.
I wouldn't even be upset because I don't feel like anybody in that locker room is is deserving to wear it. I wouldn't have a problem if nobody had the C and you had no alternates, because I don't feel like anybody deserves it.
No leaders in the Red Wings locker room. That's the takeaway from this season. Embarrassing, not acceptable, not the standard, and not something the fans are accepting. They're booing the crap out of the Red Wings night in and night out. Stay tuned to next week for another episode of Doc and Jock, where we break down all things realistically, honestly, and I'll tell you this: you will not catch Doc holding hands with any NFL head coaches. I'm sorry. That's not how I get scoops. That's not how I get information. That's not how we cover teams. We are respectful. But let me tell you this: if Kay Adams called and said, hey, she had some Lions information, we might have some iced tea. But I got to get it past the wife. And if you all know what I'm talking about, listen, no matter how much money's out there, the Doc is not going to compromise his morals. He's got a Polish wife. If he was caught holding hands in some luxury resort to get NFL information, she would be like, the podcast is over. Cutting it off. So that was what you can know, is Doc and Jock are ethical, professional. But boy, very interesting what some reporters will do for some information. My goodness. So wait, if I become a head coach, does that mean Kay Adams is going to want to hang out with me? We got to reconsider this, cuz. Maybe we should become coaches. Let's talk soon. Let's talk next week.